Hello, everyone. How are you? We are very glad to be with you every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Morocco time. And it's our great pleasure to invite our special guest speaker, Zviltana Lichman, to talk about a very interesting topic that concerns all future teachers or even experienced teachers. It's about teaching abroad. So once you get the training and once you get the certificate, the TESOL, the TEFL, the CELTA, the TESOL certificates, then you can teach. But many future teachers ask questions. Where are the best places to teach and where we can get high salaries and what are the easiest, ways to get a job either inside the country or abroad. So our special guest speaker, Sviltana, from Ukraine, but now she's in India. She will answer all your questions because this webinar or TESOL webinar will be based on questions and answers. And our presenter will share with you her experience about finding a job abroad. But before we get started, let me share with you the topic. The topic of today is about how to get access to the job market, how to teach abroad. And the workshop will be based on all you need to know about teaching abroad as an NNES. Our speaker, our presenter will explain these abbreviations. So, Sviltana Lichman has been teaching English for more than 10 years at some of the biggest companies in Europe and Asia. She has taught in Ukraine, Turkey, Myanmar, India, and also online, mono and multilingual settings. Cambridge CELTA certified, did Cambridge Delta, module #1, and holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy, linguistics. She has also a good experience in teaching, training, academic management, translation, captioning, editing, and self-assessment, materials writing, public speaking, mentoring, and life coaching. And of course, we are going to share with you at the end her YouTube channel and her blog. Now the floor is yours, our special guest speaker, Sviltana Lichman. Thank you.
Thank you, Hossein. Thank you so much for your lovely introduction. It's my big pleasure to be here. As you know, that I'm always excited to come and to share my experience. So many thanks to you and many thanks to everyone who is joining us today. So I thought what I've prepared some points that I would like to talk about first. I will talk about my experience, how I started out, things that I've done right and wrong, and also all the some problems that I encountered. So I hope that it will be helpful to you, to those teachers who are planning to go and work abroad. So I will talk about this, and as we go along, also you can put the questions in the comment box, and then I will be happy to answer these questions. And then when we have some time left towards the end of our session, we can have more question and answer session, this part. So I would like to start by saying that I'm a non-native speaker of English, and I come from Ukraine, as Hossein introduced me. And I would like to start by talking a little bit about my story. So in general, I have been teaching English for more than 10 years, around 13 years. And 5 years ago, in 2017, I decided to change my life drastically and dramatically. And I decided that at that time, I had been teaching in Ukraine already for 10 years, less than 10 years, actually. And I decided that I wanted to do something more, and I really wanted to go and teach abroad. And I remember I created my CV and I started sending it out to all the countries, companies, without actually knowing anything where I could be accepted, or where, for example, there were some restrictions of getting accepted. So, and then like at that time, I remember I didn't know anything about these certificates like CELTA, TESOL, TEFL. I knew nothing about them. So then I learned about these certificates, and I learned that actually they were like CELTA, for example, was pretty expensive to get, and I thought that I would never be able to get it. And so eventually, like I had this like strong desire to go and teach abroad, and I managed to be enrolled in a CELTA course. I did my CELTA in Ukraine. And I remember when I was doing my CELTA, like it was so difficult, really, really difficult. And I remember at some point I was thinking like that, like, why did I even decide to start this? Because like it was extremely difficult. A lot of people were crying on the course, and I seriously was considering several times of quitting this course. But thank God I didn't quit this course, and I actually finished this course. And then I received my first job offer. It was from a foreign country. It was from Turkey, but like I was so stressed out at that time, and I actually declined that job offer. And I remember, so like I finished my CELTA course, and I didn't have any job at that time. And then like I was just looking desperately for a job abroad, and I was not getting any offers. And this lady actually who had contacted me previously from Turkey, she sent me an email again asking if I was like available to start actually. And I was so happy about that. So that actually showed me like this experience, this story showed me that like maybe it will sound cliched, but like whatever is meant to be in our lives, like it's going to be in our lives. So I remember I happily accepted it, and I went to teach in Turkey in 2017, and I stayed and worked there for 1 year. Um, so um, so like on social media, on Facebook, for example, I can see people are always asking questions. So like they say where they come from, and they are asking questions like, where can I go to teach, right? Or if I don't have a degree, like what countries like can I work in? Or for example, if I don't have a teaching certificate, where can I work? And I've been seeing these questions for a long time, and I also created my blog where I wrote these articles, and these articles are about like where you can teach without a degree, or where you can teach, for example, without a teaching certificate. So I would like to talk a little bit like if you're a non-native speaker like me, I will be sharing my experience. So, and if you want to go and teach abroad, so what things you should be prepared for, and what things will be considered before hiring you. So the first thing that every employer will look at is whether you are a native speaker or a non-native speaker. And also I put this abbreviation NNES, it stands for non-native English speaker. So the first thing that will be considered is your nationality or passport, so where you come from. Sometimes it can be a requirement, like a visa requirement, because, for example, for a company to employ you legally, the company has to submit the package of the documents to the local Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education is like will be inquiring, for example, why do we have to accept this person from another country, right? Because every country, of course, wants to give employment to the like local citizens, local teachers. So the company needs to give all the necessary qualifications to prove that this person will be important in this country and in this company, right? So this person will be able to make a contribution. So sometimes this requirement be like coming from an approved English-speaking country, and I would like to emphasize approved. It's not just any English-speaking country. There are 19 countries. The most common are the United States, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, and Ireland. So most of the companies that require native speakers, they want native speakers from these countries. And usually these countries are China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and South Korea. sometimes, like, so a lot of people are going to work in China, but China actually, like, there are a lot of restrictions. There are like so like it really depends on the region where you want to work, and also if you want to work in the private sector or if you want to work in the government sector. Like, as far as I know, that in the if it's impossible to work if you are a non-native speaker. It's impossible to work in the government sector. You can only work in the private sector. For example, you can work for a British council, you can work for an international house, because these are the two companies that have non-discrimination policy. So they will never discriminate you on your country of origin or your passport or your nationality. Sometimes a lot of people I know that from Europe, from different countries, they go and work in China illegally, actually. And they work under different job titles. So sometimes, for example, it's not an English teacher. Sometimes it can be like an assistant, right? A teaching assistant. So I've heard also stories that, so my kind recommendation to everyone is to be careful with this, with working illegally, because there are stories when people are detained. So they are sent to the police, actually, and they are put into jail for some time, and then they are deported to their home country. So such things also happen. So with China, so like it's tricky. So before going to China, so please learn about all the nuances about it. And like I said, like probably you want to check the private sector, not the government sector in China. Now, South Africa, I see that also on Facebook and on other social media, a lot of people from South Africa, like they are native speakers, right? But unfortunately, a lot of countries and companies do not recognize them as native speakers, right? So, and like I said, sometimes it can be the requirement of an employer, or sometimes it can be a requirement from to get a visa, right? If you want to go and work somewhere. In the European Union, it's actually illegal to put advertisements. If you want, for example, a native speaker, this cannot be done. This is done for the equality, like of everyone, right? So everyone has equal rights to apply for the same job. And I know a case, there was a story with one lady who applied for a teaching position, and she got declined, and they actually put it in the letter that we cannot actually hire you or even consider your candidacy just because you are a non-native English speaker. So what this lady did, she actually sued them, and she won the case, and she received 3,000 euros for this. But in order to do this, like, you have to come from a European Union, and then you have the right to sue the company who does something like this, because it's actually not allowed to do this in the European Union. Okay, so the second thing, so yes, so we spoke a little bit about native speakers, non-native speakers. So the second and important thing is a degree. So again, a lot of people on social media, I see these questions like all the time. People are asking like, where can I work without the degree? So first, that I would like to say that with each year, there are fewer and fewer countries that are willing to accept people without a degree. So for example, if you don't have a degree, at least consider to be enrolled in university. So maybe you are in your first year, academic year, or second academic year. So at least being enrolled will help you also get a job. Because the countries that accept people without a degree, usually these are South American countries, like, for example, Colombia, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, Peru, Chile, and Venezuela. And these countries, unfortunately, some of them do not guarantee safety, and the pay will be really, really low, something around $400 or $500. And also, so countries that require companies that require degree, usually it's a first level degree, and first level degree, it's a bachelor's degree. And the bachelor's degree can be in Bachelor of Arts, so this is the humanities area. So for example, if you studied languages or history or communications or literature, something like this. Or it can be also, sometimes it really actually usually like companies put their requirements, they just say that we want you to have a bachelor's degree and your subject area doesn't really matter. So it can be also a degree in science. So for example, if your subject area was software or chemistry or biology or physics or something like this. So this is the most general requirement of most of the companies. Sometimes some Middle Eastern countries, like for example, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they usually require a master's degree. And this master's degree is usually preferred in a related subject area. So they prefer candidates to have their master's degree in arts, right? So like if you studied languages, for example, philology, philosophy, and so on. Again, like I said, so in some countries, associate degree, it's like a general, it's a degree where you do not specialize actually in any field in particular. It's just like general knowledge that you received at university, and you usually study for 2 years only. So this degree can be accepted in some countries. Usually, like I said, it's South American countries, but again, the pay rate will be very low, unfortunately. And also like some benefits, you will not be granted some benefits. So being a non-native speaker, of course, we want to strive like to get all the possible qualifications, right? Like to get a job, to be eligible for all the bonuses and for the best salary, right? Okay, so the next thing, so we spoke about degree. The next thing is teaching certificate. So the most recognized teaching certificates are TEFL or TESOL, CELTA, and sometimes also DELTA. So so CELTA, I will just say a few words about CELTA because I did CELTA myself. So every, not only CELTA, but every degree is preferred to have on site, so that you didn't do it online, you did it on site in person. However, with like this COVID pandemic thing happening and like other things happening in the world, like also a lot of companies have become more lenient about it, and they also accept online certificates. However, if you have a chance also, I would encourage everyone to have an in-person certificate. The other thing that is also considered by reputable employers is if you had the teaching practice, and if this teaching practice was of real students, because also, like for example, TEFL, TESOL industry, unfortunately is infamously unregulated, and sometimes like it can be like not a very good provider of it, right? So so what companies require is that at least it must be 120 hours for CELTA, for TEFL, for TESOL, and teaching practice, and this teaching practice of real students, not peer teaching, where you get the feedback also from your professional tutors. Sometimes I know also some people who have, they started with DELTA, but DELTA it's already a diploma, right? So for example, CELTA, C stands for certificate, TEFL, TESOL, the same. DELTA, this is already, it's a Cambridge diploma, and it's recommended to have after you do the initial preparation, initial certification in CELTA, TEFL, or TESOL. However, sometimes I meet people who, they have only DELTA, but it's something that it's not recommended to start with because it's much more difficult actually to start with. All these certificates are lifelong, so you don't have to renew them, for example, every 2 or 3 years or whatever. And Something maybe like I can mention a little bit what is required in terms of TEFL and TESOL. So as I mentioned that like there are a lot of providers right now, right? And some of them are not really recognized by some reputable companies. So if you're considering doing a TEFL or TESOL, so some things that you should consider like the provider, right? Because like of course, you need to be the provider to be qualified and the tutors to have proper qualifications. The minimum number of hours should be not less than 120, and it can vary, as far as I know, between 120 to 360 hours. And it's also, they have also levels. These levels, actually, they come from Cambridge assessment. However, for example, if you see like requirements for a job, and so the requirements say usually we want you to have degree, experience, like blah, 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 all these things, right? And when they say CELTA or equivalent, it means that if you have TEFL or TESOL, it must be a certificate of at minimum 120 hours with the teaching practice, and this teaching practice should involve teaching real students, not peer teaching. Something else to consider is that so when you do, for example, your TEFL or TESOL, is that this teaching practice should have the teaching practice should have teaching of 2 levels, and the most common levels are A2 and B1. So you have the experience of teaching different levels of students. So something also that maybe you want to check before being enrolled in the TEFL or TESOL course is the qualifications of the tutors, right? Input sessions, assignments, there should be written assignments. In CELTA, there are 4 written assignments. There should be also classroom observations and feedback to know how you are doing actually, and that you are improving as a teacher. Because, for example, my experience before I enrolled in my CELTA, I had been teaching for many years already, and I was like, I felt that I had known everything. And I was like, what can they teach me in CELTA, right? But then when I started doing CELTA, actually, it was extremely difficult. And I realized that what I had known by that time, it was actually very little. So it's, so these kind of observations, like when you have observations and when you have feedback from professional tutors, it's extremely important, because this is how we can grow and develop as teachers. And also certificate verification. So some companies, sometimes they want to check, for example, if this is a legit certificate, right? That it's not fake and it comes from a genuine and real company. So sometimes some employers, they can actually contact the provider of the TEFL or TESOL certificate and confirm that this person actually received this genuine and real certificate from this provider. Okay. Okay. Also, something that I would like to mention, that for those people who have Delta, also some companies, they actually pay higher salaries. But this is, like I mentioned also before, that it's already a higher level qualification that you usually that people usually do after they get initial qualification like CELTA, TEFL or TESOL. Also, TEFL or TESOL, a lot of people say that it's actually the same thing. So it's just like 2 abbreviations, but basically a lot of employers consider them as equally interchangeable, and basically it's the same thing. Now, the next thing that employers usually consider is experience. And usually 1 year of experience is required. Sometimes some companies require 1 year of experience after you get your teaching certificate. So for example, in my case, I had been teaching for 6 or 7 years, right? And then I got my CELTA. So only after my CELTA, my experience will count for some employers, right? So, but it's not common, just sometimes it happens. Sometimes I've seen some ads like this. Some companies want their candidates to have 2 or 3 years of experience. And some, usually it's Middle Eastern countries like United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. They require usually, as I said before, a master's degree in a related subject area, plus also 5 years of experience. For those people, so again, like sometimes I can see this question on social media. People are asking like what to do if you don't have experience. If you don't have a teaching experience, it's absolutely okay. First, because a lot of employers do not ask for it. And second, you can actually do a voluntary teaching. So for example, you can go to an orphanage or you can go to school, you can work for free, but also this will count as your experience. To prove that you had this experience, you can just ask for a letter of recommendation or give a reference to your employer that you actually work there. So, but nobody cares whether it was like official, it was unofficial, it was voluntary teaching. So any teaching will do, any experience will do. Just some companies will be asking for a reference or a letter of recommendation. Okay, prepared some things here. Okay. Also for non-native speakers, some companies sometimes ask an English proficiency certificate. And I would like to emphasize that English proficiency certificate and teaching certificate, they are absolutely different certificates. So a teaching certificate is about your teaching skills and abilities, techniques that you use, right? Like methodologies that you apply in a classroom. And English proficiency certificate, it's about your level of English, how well you know English, right? And usually it's required for non-native speakers. Sometimes companies do not ask for it, they check it in interviews, but sometimes it can be a formal requirement. And what companies actually require, they require a CEFR. Usually it's C1 or C2, but sometimes also B2 will do also in some countries and companies. So CEFR stands for Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, right? And some tests or some exams that you can do is, for example, like IELTS is the most common, IELTS academic module, TOEIC or TOEFL. For IELTS, it cannot be less than, for IELTS academic, it cannot be less than 7.0. 7.0, this is the lowest grade for C1 level. For TOEIC, it's 900, but this exam, like, it's not very common. Just in case, for example, in your country, if IELTS is not available, like maybe you can do this exam. Or sometimes, like, you can check it also with the with your employer, right? What exam they want you to take in case if you don't have any certificate like this. Or TOEFL, internet-based version. 95 mark, right? So the maximum is 120. 95 and above will be good for will be enough for getting hired abroad. Okay. Also for non-native English speakers, as well as for native English speakers, what employers want to see, they want to in terms of their language. So the language should be neutral and clear. So for example, if you speak with an American accent or a British accent, like, it's okay, but it should not be some like very heavy accent that will be difficult to understand for some people, right, that you are going to teach. Those people for whom English is second language. So clear, neutral accent is equally important, as well as having English proficiency certificate.
Yes.
Some companies...
Lana,
yeah.
sorry for interrupting you. There is a very interesting question coming from
yes. Okay,
audience.
I'm ready.
Yeah, Nabil Zianis asked, are online TESFL and TESOL certificates enough to get a job abroad or not?
Okay,
so online certificates.
Okay. So before COVID, I definitely can say online certificates were accepted maybe by 5 or 7% of companies everywhere.
Yes.
But when COVID started, of course, like so many companies, like everybody had to switch online, right? So that
Yes.
became like extremely popular. So, for example, like if you are planning to go and teach face-to-face only, right? And there are a lot of companies in the world who are teaching face-to-face now, especially that the COVID restrictions are lifted now. So, so definitely I would recommend an in-person certificate. But if you're planning to work online, like personally, I work online mainly right now. So in that case, also it will be okay. Probably, like I would say, if you have a chance, do an in-person course. If you don't have a chance, online also will do. Especially if you want to work online in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting because in Morocco, there are some students who are far away from the center, so they cannot spend so many hours, traveling to Rabat, the capital, to do this training. So they opt for plan B, which is online. But here I would like to add something else. Thanks to, not due to, but thanks to the COVID-19, many schools and language centers start to accept online certificates. And here I would like to share our experience at the American TESOL Academy. We have got plenty of, TESOLers who got their certificates online and now they are teaching abroad. However, I agree with you 100%. If you have the opportunity to do the training in person, go for it, because you will learn a lot, okay, by observing each other, practicing the teaching, learning from others, etc. But if you are far away, then plan B is online. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and if your plan is to work online only, definitely online certificate will do.
Yeah,
so,
another question
yes.
by Muhammad Siro. Do you suggest any online courses that improve my teaching skills?
Can I suggest any online courses?
Yes, companies or names of companies, okay.
Oh, okay. I can suggest Hussein's company. I see that there's lots of interesting things happening.
Thank you.
And I actually was going to come and visit their company there, but unfortunately, in my country, there's a war right now, and the conditions are very complicated. So I had to go. Like now, I'm very far from that continent, but I think Hussein has an amazing, wonderful company, and definitely I can recommend Hostin and his company. You can check out, like I can see always on LinkedIn, on Facebook, that he has lots of interesting events happening. And
wonderful. And thank you.
Hostin, how long is your course? How many hours can I ask of TESOL?
We provide the 120-hour TESOL course. There are two types. One takes 3 months. Every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they cover the training in 3 months, plus the micro teaching and the practicum or the internship. So we specify and we insist on our trainees to go on internship, and they have to teach at least 20 hours. And of course, they teach different levels. It can be first grade, third grade, sixth grade, etc. Okay. And there is another one for those who are very busy. It takes 5 months, but it's the same number of hours. But they study only 3 to 4 hours per week, which means on Saturday, they come to the academy and they study from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And this takes 5 months. Of course, the same number of hours, the same scope, the same micro teaching and internship, but at the end, what is interesting, they become well qualified to teach and they get access to the job market. This is the very interesting.
Yeah. So it's more like part-time and full-time, right? Courses.
Good. And for the online, we have online course, and it's very amazing that it's a self-paced learning course. What is amazing, some Moroccan students could complete the course in 1 week. They start, they spend so many hours, learning, while others may take 2, 3 to 4 weeks. So there's flexibility. If you are busy and you would like to get the online certificate in a short time, you have to spend so much time, doing the tasks and the tasks, So here, I would like to share something very interesting that, many graduates from our, TESOL Academy are online. They get online certificates because in Asia, now Morocco, Moroccan teachers have invaded, Vietnam, You cannot imagine how many Moroccan teachers.
Yes, Vietnam, yes.
Because today China is closed due to the COVID, So, however, Vietnam welcomes many Moroccans. But there's something very interesting that you mentioned is about teaching job opportunities in South America, especially in Brazil or Venezuela or Mexico, etc. And what is interesting, you mentioned that people there can teach with no certificates, but the bad story is the low salaries,
Yes.
At this point, I would like to encourage our future teachers at the beginning. Don't care about money, but you care about experience. So you can go wherever the job is, get more experience, like 1 year, 2 years. Then you can discuss. Then you can insist on the payment.
Yes, that's right. This is what I actually did also when I went to Turkey. At that time, Turkey was more or less okay, because now, as far as I know, also the pay rate is actually much lower than compared to when I was there 5 years ago. And I went there because of the experience also. So what you're saying, it's absolutely valid.
Yes, there's another follower on Facebook insisting to ask this question. It's this question is raised by Abu Sami. The CELTA certificate give the chance for a non-native, but here we are talking about Moroccans, for a non-native speakers to teach in European countries such as Italy, Spain, UK, Sweden, etc.
Yes, especially I would say Italy, Spain, and Greece. These 3 countries, Italy, Spain, and Greece, if you don't have a degree, you can teach there, but you have to be a European Union citizen. If you are a Moroccan, like you said in this case, the most opportunities you can have in Spain. In Spain, I can share, after this webinar, I can share the links. There are 2 programs which are supported and sponsored by government authorities. And they accept people actually from all over the world. So they don't have any discrimination. Like, it doesn't matter where you come from or like anything else. The most important is that will be considered is your qualifications. So degree, teaching qualification, and experience, these 3 things. So yes, especially pay attention to Spain. They do have these programs.
Yeah, so
Italy sometimes, but less. Spain will be number 1. Yes.
So for Abu Sami to have CELTA or TESOL or TESFL or any other teaching qualifications, yes, you can teach in some European countries, but they insist on the fluency and the good accent.
Yes, and sometimes I think also other European countries, like in the past you could teach in Ukraine, but now, like, as you know, like Ukraine it's impossible to go and work in Ukraine. Other countries, maybe
like
some
Romania.
Countries would be willing. Maybe they would be willing to hire you, but they will be paying you much lower salary, because, for example, they say like, okay, so European Union, like the advertisements that I see on the internet, all of them want their candidates to have the European Union citizenship, right? So because the competition, you can imagine, so there are like how many, 28 countries, right? So you are competing with people from the 28 countries, right? So Here, what's important is to have your qualifications. But again, for example, if the employer wants to hire you, like sometimes they will pay you lower salary, right? Because this will be like good for them. And sometimes actually people agree to this, right? But my recommendation would be Spain. Please look into Spanish programs. They do have good programs. They will not make your salary lower just because you come from a certain country or not the right country, right? So do look into Spanish programs. And after this webinar, I will send these links to Hossein, and he can share this also on the social media.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. Any more questions so far?
Yeah. Another question, a little bit far from our topic, but it's interesting. How to be an international speaker?
Sorry, how to?
How to be an international speaker.
International speaker, like you mean like to give presentations like this?
Yeah.
Or teacher?
So it's easy. Read a lot, listen a lot, and write a lot. Then you can speak. It goes like this: reading, listening, writing, speaking. Okay. So we have to read. Short stories or articles. Then we can listen to. English speakers. Then we can take some notes, and then we can give a presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think like
Muhammad Siro from Syria said, we hope to see TESOL Academy soon in Syria. Yeah, inshallah, why not? By the way, we have partnerships in Algeria, in Lebanon, and soon in Senegal, okay, and Mauritania. So
that's so nice because
more.
Yeah, because last time I remember when we met, you told me that you have your representatives in Algeria and Lebanon, but now you expanded your network, and you said it's Senegal, and what is one more country?
Yeah, it's Senegal and Mauritania.
I see. Okay, that's so cool. Really cool.
Yeah, Miriam Ujama asked, does teaching abroad require just TESOL TESFL certificate, or it also requires experience? And if they require experience, how many years they require?
That's a good question. So in order to teach abroad, there are three most important things: is your degree, teaching certificate, and also your experience, right? So degree, we spoke about the degree, teaching certificate, experience. Usually, most of the companies require 1 year of experience in a related subject area. So in teaching, right? Teaching can be teaching of young learners, teenagers, adults, like doesn't matter, just teaching. Sometimes it can be 2 or 3 years, and like I said before, that some companies also require this teaching experience only after you get your teaching certificate. So when you do your teaching certificate, and then like for example, if before that you had taught, let's say, for 10 years, right? I know some people actually who teach for many years, and then only then, like after many years, they get the teaching certificate, and then it's like an eye-opener and everything changes, right? Like after you get this certificate. So to answer your question, you do need to have experience at least 1 year usually. If you don't have a chance to do that for some reason, you can do voluntary teaching, right? So for example, some like charitable organizations, right? If it's a school, or if it's an orphanage, or like foster care, right, organization, so something like this. So yes, definitely, like why it's important, it's not only important, what I would like to say, it's not only important for the employer, it's also very important for you, because when I went and like to teach abroad, like you remember always that there's always very aggressive competition, right, among teachers, and you don't want to look like some teachers actually know more things than you do, and then you will be feeling like you are kind of like lower than these teachers, right? Like maybe your English is fantastic and you have like a better degree, but still, like you don't want to feel inferior, right? Also, you like having knowledge and having certificates, like honestly, it's a very powerful, I can say from my experience also. So it's not only because of the employer, it's also, and most importantly, it's because of you, because you you want to be a professional teacher and you want to be a powerful teacher, right?
Yeah, it's clear. Experience and salary go hand in hand. You may have no experience and you get a job, but with low salaries. And you may have more than 3, 4, 5 years of experience, and then you get well paid. So because there is competition among teachers, so we advise you to teach more and to get more teaching certificates so as to stand out of the crowd.
Yes, and also be able to compete with other teachers, right? Like if there's a, for example, teacher meeting or teacher training, and if, for example, you can hear some terms, right? Like that we study in these courses, for example, TP, right? Or TTT or STT, right? And all these things. And if you do not know these abbreviations, like probably like this will, like maybe like your self-esteem will be like not that high as you would like it to be. So it's also, firstly, it's for yourself, I would say, and only then this is the to meet the requirement of employers.
Yes, there's another question by Usama Abduni. Is it important to have a bachelor's degree with a good grade to apply for teaching abroad offers?
Okay, grades. I never heard that somebody checks grades, never. So bachelor's degree, this is the first level qualification. It's accepted in most of the companies. And like I said, it can be a Bachelor of Arts, so in the humanities area, like if it's languages, linguistics, philology, history, for example, right? Or it can be Bachelor of Science, for example, if it's engineering, software, physics, chemistry, biology, right? So about the grades, nobody ever checks it. For example, when I studied at university and I got a bachelor's degree, I don't have a master's degree, by the way. And it was also part-time. I didn't study full-time. So nobody ever asked me if I studied full-time or part-time. So this is like absolutely, it has zero importance. And also grades, nobody ever checked or asked me about grades. Degree, it's usually it's a visa requirement. So like I said before, so the company, so you want to work legally, right? And the company also wants to employ you legally. And in order to employ you legally, the company needs to submit a package of documents to the Ministry of Education of the local country, right? Where you're going to teach. And the degree is one of them. Because, for example, the government might ask, like, why do we need to give the permission, right, to give the visa to this person? Because we have our own teachers and we need to employ them, right, in the first place, in the first hand. So degree, it's usually this is the visa requirement. So nobody ever cares, was it full-time, part-time, your grades, these things are not important at all.
Great. Yeah, there are more questions.
Yes.
Another one is by Escobar Sahara, said, should EFL teachers get a whatever certificate to prove that they are experienced enough to teach abroad? Don't you think that this is a business issue rather than a new learning journey?
Okay, can you please repeat again? Do Asian teachers? I didn't really get it.
So don't you think that this is a business issue rather than a new learning journey?
Okay, I'm not really sure I understand the question.
Let me paraphrase, let me reframe the question.
Yes.
So Escobar Sahara is asking about, future teachers can get any certificate, okay?
Yes.
May prove they have an experience to teach. But at the same time, do you think that it is that this is just for the sake of business, paying money, and then you get a certificate, and then you get a job?
Okay, so okay, as I understand, so like getting a certificate is just a business and nothing else, right? About only the money, right?
Yeah, it's rather than a new learning journey.
No, definitely. Like also, as I gave an example for like, I'm so grateful for my like to have an opportunity to get my teaching certificate, because honestly, if I went to teach abroad, let's say just hypothetically, right, and there were teachers actually they were very knowledgeable, and I would feel really bad if they were talking about all these things that like I would have no idea what they are talking about, and like maybe you have experience as a teacher and you're a wonderful teacher, this is also true, right? But also like if you want to go like to step up, right, and going to teach abroad is a step up, right? So like of course you want to be also like a skilled and knowledgeable teacher. So first, this is for your personal development, for your like for your personal growth, and second, this is also for your professional development, so you can compete with other teachers, and so you can be also employable, right? So definitely no, it's not a business, it's something that that's everywhere, it's a must have, right? It's a requirement. Like if you go, for example, there's a website called TESFL.com, and it's a very popular website where a lot of teachers find jobs. So you can check many different countries, companies, continents, and always you will see a requirement CELTA or equivalent, CELTA or equivalent. And CELTA or equivalent means that it can be CELTA, TEFL, TESOL of at least 120 hours with teaching practice of real students.
That's nice. Thank you.
So I hope I understand. I hope I answered that question. I hope it qualifies for an answer.
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah, another question by let me see if I can pronounce this name. Sia Lothenberg asked, should teachers know the language of the country where they may teach?
That's a good question. Actually, yes, sometimes it can be a requirement, but usually no, it's not the requirement because now a lot of companies, they apply communicative methods, right? And like when you teach, you apply communicative method, and by applying this method means that you should not use the first language, right, the language of that your students speak, right, their native language. So in most of the countries and most of the companies do not require that. However, sometimes yes, I do see advertisements which ask you to have at least some kind of a beginner level or basic level where you can understand some basic things, how to communicate with learners. But most of the companies do not require this. Only some companies require sometimes. That was a good question.
Yeah, that's nice. Very interesting. Yeah, I have a question. So, especially teaching Asia, what do you think about the skin? The skin of the
teacher? Yes, this is something I was going to say. Yes,
the black and the white.
Yes, this is something that was on my list. Yes.
Do you think that having a white skin will be more qualified and you will get, I mean, well paid? But if you have another skin, maybe I'm gonna clarify. The skin refers to Africa. You may not have more, I mean, opportunities. Can you please elaborate on this?
Yes, this is something also I was going to mention, that my answer is yes. Unfortunately, this kind of discrimination exists. And to be honest, first, like when I went to Turkey, like I never heard about these things. I never knew about these things. But then when I went to teach in Asia, then I learned about these things. And to be honest, I was very shocked. It's very common in China. It's very common also in other countries. And I know some stories and some cases. So for example, let's imagine that there's a choice between two candidates, right? One candidate is white-skinned and the other one is not white-skinned, right? And the one who's, for example, let's say a black person, right? This person has better degree, better teaching qualification, right, experience maybe, but the person with the white skin, like this person, let's say, has very basic qualifications. So unfortunately, in some companies, this person with white skin will be chosen for the position. Yes, I know that it's actually, I speak a lot about these things to raise more awareness on this, and I have an article on my blog about this because I believe that it's important important to bring it up and it's important to speak about these things. But to answer your question, yes, unfortunately, this kind of discrimination does exist.
So in this case, if Zviltana and Hossein apply for the same job, Zviltana, white skin, you may have a very good job. Okay, I'm just kidding here. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to share some stories from my, TESFLers. They went to Asia and they faced this problem about the skin and the veil. And what is shocking is that some companies or some schools are not honest. They tell parents that this teacher is from the UK, that this teacher is from America, but that teacher is Moroccan, but he has got a very white color skin, okay? So that's why we should avoid this, this kind of discrimination about colors of people, like white or black. However, in Europe and in America, I don't think we have this, this problem or this issue.
Yes, yes. Sometimes also, yes. So another thing what you mentioned is that some companies actually do not allow their teachers to tell the students where they are from, right? So you can just say in general, for example, I'm from Europe or I'm from America, right? Which means South America, North America. Nobody really knows where exactly, right? Or sometimes even some companies they tell you to actually tell lies about it. So just like you gave an example that these teachers were from Morocco, right, or another country, but actually they have to say that they are from the UK or the US or so actually I can say that it's a big shame. And it's a pity that such things exist, and these things should not exist. We should have more justice about these things. We should have more there should be more just competition, right? So these are not the things that we should be looking at, right? About the appearance or skin color or something else. Things that must be considered is your degree, your qualification, your teaching experience, your teaching certificate. So these are definitely not unfortunately it does exist, but yeah, and it's like I said, it's a big shame. And another thing is that sometimes some companies, it's also not legal, but what they want is they look at people's age, right? So again, by law, any person can be hired, right? Regardless of their age. But again, most of the companies, I remember I saw an advertisement that they said, we want a teacher who is under 35 years old. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm 33 years old. So it means that after 2 more years, I will not be able to apply to some companies. So that's actually, it's also, it's also sad to see such things, unfortunately.
Yeah, good. And here, my piece of advice, when you come across any teaching announcement, and for example, it states this job is only for female or only for teachers under the age of this, just apply. Don't care about that condition. And here I would like to share a story. It's a real story. I still remember one day in Rabat, there was a teaching job opportunity only for female teachers, because the announcement was only for female. However, I applied. I'm a male teacher, and I applied, and to my surprise, they accepted my application, and then they asked me for an interview. The interview was good, but at the end, I didn't agree with the payment. So every time I share this story with my future teachers, never care about the announcement and its condition, just apply. Okay. If they say it's only for female and you are a male, apply for it. If they say this is only for native, sometimes you may find a lot of announcements for native speakers. However, yes, you can apply even though you are not a native a speaker. Great. There are 2 more questions, or there are many, by the way, but we still have 5 minutes and we end up. So Rose Blanche asked, is native-like speaker have more chances and advantages when it comes to teaching abroad?
So native like means that you are non-native, but your level is actually near native, right?
Yeah, this was I guess. Yeah, it's about the fluency and the accent. Yeah.
I see, yes. So something that I should say that when I did my CELTA, that we had teachers from tutors from Cambridge, and they always told us that accents are never assessed, right? They can never be judged as long as you actually speak correctly, and this is the most important. But again, one of the requirements you can see that. Most of the companies, like all of the companies, probably I can say, what they say is we want a near native, right? And near native means, yes, it's about, like I said, the neutral, clear accent, clear pronunciation, and this is your C1 or C2 level on the CEFR scale, right? So near native, like you don't need to imitate or copy any accents, right? So, but you have to strive, just try to speak try to speak naturally, try to speak clearly and with a neutral accent. That's the most important. And then you will be considered like native, just to sound natural, I would say, and fluent, yes, also fluent, like you said.
Good, thank you. The last question, let me see, Jalal. I guess Jalal Zbirat. I'm trying to see where is his question. Okay. Yeah, but the question was about, I mean, before one starts teaching in the classroom, does he or she go? Let me just remember. Yeah, before one starts teaching in the classroom, should he or should she go, or should he or she, have a test before that? I guess he's talking about
English proficiency, right?
Yeah.
Certification. Well, like if you want to, if it's a requirement of the company, then yes. For example, in my case, I worked for a lot of companies, and now I work also for several companies. To be honest, nobody ever asked me about this. And sometimes when I asked my employers, I said, do you want me to submit my, for example, IELTS or TOEFL test to show my English proficiency? They said no, because this will be assessed during the interview. We will see your fluency, if you can speak naturally. If you have a chance, well, first I should say that these certificates are not cheap, right? They cost something like $200, like IELTS, TOEFL. So if you want to do it for yourself, and especially if you want to teach these courses, then it would be a very big advantage, I believe. But if it's not required, and if you don't have this financial opportunity, then like it's not really necessary. Only if it's required, and only if you can afford it, and also if you're planning to teach these courses yourself in the future.
Wonderful, yeah. So yes, at the end, I would like to ask our special guest speaker, Lana, one piece of advice to our Moroccan future teachers who are planning to teach abroad. So what piece of advice would you give them?
Yes, so this is also something that I was thinking about, what I would like to share, that based on my own experience, and some things, like when I think like what things I've done right, what things I've done wrong in my professional career, right? And one regret that I have is that I entered university at a very late age. I entered university when I was at the age of 22, and I graduated from university at the age of 27. And then I got my CELTA teaching certificate at the age of 28. So I was actually not that young when I got all these experience qualifications. So my regret is that I didn't obtain these qualifications at an earlier age. First, because when I grow older, I realized that it's not that easy to somehow, like, my memory is not that good already, right? And like this cognitive abilities. So things are changing, right? Things are getting updated every day, and the prices go up for everything, and the requirements also. I can, for example, if I compare the requirements like 5 years ago and now, the requirements now, there are much more of them, and they are actually very harsh requirements. It's not that easy as it was, for example, 5 years ago. So my first and most important piece of advice is that if you are planning to go into teaching seriously, so obtain all the possible qualifications as early as possible, because having education, having this combination of qualifications, the right qualifications and the knowledge, it's actually a very powerful tool. And like I said, that you will have to compete, right? There's a very aggressive competition like happening in the world. And also there will be the teachers who you will be working with, right? You don't want to lose your face and show that actually you are a little bit on a bit lower level. So obtain your qualifications as early as possible. This is my first piece of advice. If I'm allowed to share, maybe like I can mention some more. Am I allowed to share?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So also what I've learned is that whatever you do, so I like to talk about this thing that like teaching, it's not just a regular job, right? It's a service job. And whatever we do, I believe that we always must do professionally. And what I mean is that, for example, let's say sometimes I do some classes for free, right? And some people believe that like teachers or in other jobs, they say like, or maybe like I don't have to put my energy, right? Or my knowledge, or I can just relax, right? Because like it's for free, right? I don't get paid for this class. So this is actually a very like such a like misconception about this, because like I believe that as teachers we always have to do our job professionally, because for example, if you teach somebody for free and this person can recommend you to like a big company, right? And then you can get your dream job from this person. So somehow like these dots or these points will be connected in the future. So whatever you do, and also especially as teachers, like always, I believe that it's so important to do things professionally, right? So it's like do the job professionally. It's important like to aspire greatness in everything, to reach to obtain the best qualifications, to get the experience, to get your degree. So everything, I believe, like all these things are like really important, and it's like I said before, it's a very powerful tool. So obtain your qualifications, and don't second guess yourself. So just don't give up. Also sometimes also it's so like it gets so like teaching, it's such a demanding job also, right? And sometimes I remember like moments when I just wanted to give up, and the only thing that wouldn't let me give up is because like I knew that like I was doing this like not because of money or something else, because like it was my like my vocation, right? My internal calling, right? So so these things didn't let me give up. So yeah, these things that I was going to share.
Yeah, and before we call it a day, there is a question, but I guess you can answer it quickly, because Marwa Slami from Tunisia, I guess she's insisting, what are the requirements in France? I have a master's degree and more than 5 years of experience in Tunisia. Is the CELTA or other qualifications still necessary? Thank you in advance.
Oh, about France, right?
Yes.
Or to be honest, I don't know much about France. For like what I know for sure, it's a European Union country. So first, they will be looking for people with the European Union citizenship. To be honest, I don't know any programs. Like you can try to apply. Like there's a website called eslbase.com, and there you can see all the countries and lists of all the schools everywhere. So what you can do is you can just send your CV and to see like at least if they respond, to try your luck. There are some advertisements on the internet from France. Like I said, like almost 99% of them require European Union citizenship, but maybe like you can just send your CV directly and try your luck there, or maybe you can consult someone, because honestly I don't know much more about France than other than that.
All right, so thank you, Lena, for sharing your experience and expertise with our teachers here in Morocco, especially about how to get access to the job market abroad. And don't forget that every Friday, the American TESOL Academy organizes online workshops at 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So next week with another speaker to share with you another topic. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so kind of you.